Ahem. How's it going on out there, guys? We hope you're having a nice Saturday. We got Polly Boy here again, and Polly Boy here is apparently reporting on possibly the largest defense spending bill ever. Again, always wondered how we kind of keep raising the bar on that, but oh well. But yeah, he he once again shows that he doesn't really know how Washington D.C. works either now. But for the most part, he's commenting on something that happened yesterday, where the lower house of Congress, the representatives, they passed something, and yeah, I'll just let Polly Boy here explain it to you for right now.
U.S. National Defense Authorization Act and what it means for Ukraine. So this is exceptional for a couple of reasons. First off, it is the largest, most expensive National Defense Act ever passed. It includes $886 billion in spending.
Hot damn! Now, how much of that is actually going to Ukraine?
But it was approved along a party line vote. Now, I want to recognize something here, and that is that in the U.S., parties are becoming, in some ways, more centralized. And if it's already apparent when a legislative act will pass, those whose votes will not affect the outcome, right? Because this could have passed with, 126 to 100 or 226 to or 216 to 215, right? Passed is passed.
Polly Boy, you need to slow down. All right, find your words, figure out what you want to say, and then say it. Also, passed is not passed. Congress, if you get what's called an act of God, also known as a 2/3 majority vote in Congress. The bill doesn't need to see the president. The bill just becomes law. I mean, you work for the government. I figured you would know how the government works, but I guess I was wrong there. Maybe I'm asking too much of you, Polly Boy. But yeah, there's a reason he's going to start dancing around a subject here in a little bit, and there's a reason that he mentioned party lines, and I'll get into that in a second here when he eventually reaches it. But there's going to be a point, because there's something in that bill that he's going to dance around, and honestly, it just kind of shows his. I don't really blame him a whole lot for dancing around the subject like he is. I've seen a lot of people do it, but at the same time, it still shows his cowardice in not wanting to take a stand either for or against on the subject. So we'll get to that. We'll cross that bridge when we get there.
So a lot of the votes end up being symbolic gestures by legislators. So
not really.
I do not interpret this narrow vote of 2019 219 to 210 as indicating that there was actually not a lot of support for national defense, or that it was in danger of not passing. I think it more reflects the fact that the NDAA has become, like almost every other aspect of American politics, a bellwether for trying to think of the nice way to put this. Issues that sometimes are not actually that relevant to the direction of the country as a whole.
What in the fuck is that word salad, Paul? A bellwether to what? Dude, what are you trying to say? You need to and you notice, I'm just going to wait until he gets to it to mention it. But it is pretty serious. And, in one point, I'd say that the Republicans on this, with the strategy that they've employed with the bill, it's kind of genius in a way, because it does improve the military in one aspect, and in the other aspect, the leftists get their support for Ukraine that they continue to want. But they don't want to ever really make concessions to anyone ever. So, but Paul, whatever could you be talking about?
I say this because, again, nearly $1 trillion of spending, $300 million of that is support committed to Ukraine. Includes a pay raise for members of the military, initiatives to counter China. But right, the House majority, though, so the Democrats said they would not support the NDAA.
That's all, folks. He's trying to explain a pork bill. He's essentially saying that the National Defense Act, Budgetary Act, or whatever the fuck it's called, the one we pass every year, it ends up being stuffed with pork a lot of these budgetary applications and bills that need to be passed on a yearly basis or bi-yearly basis. They know they're going to pass. So what they do is they stuff other fucking atoms in there. But the atoms that they stuck in here that he's talking about that I've seen do belong in this fucking bill. This is not something like, oh, hey, we're going to, $70,000 to women's studies for Pakistan in a American recovery bill. Like we saw with that, No, this is all stuff that actually does regard national defense. It's stuff that regards the military. And you're fumbling over your words because you walk on eggshells because of the side you took, and you really don't know what you're talking about. So you're hampered in your language, and you don't know what you're talking about. So I don't even know why you're even trying to discuss this, dude.
After the Republican majority House voted exclusively along party lines to stick in a bunch of these hot button social issues, again, that, in my opinion, are not necessarily national scale problems. For example, whether or not the one issue was, for example, whether or not TRICARE, the military's medical benefits organization, would pay for service members to travel to receive abortions.
Yes, that is correct. As of right now, because of the ruling that was on last year from the Supreme Court, which the Supreme Court dictated that it is the authority of the states, not the federal government, to legislate law in regards to abortions, that the military, if a service member was in a state that did not allow for abortions from whatever trimester they were in, which the harshest one is Oklahoma, where they deny abortions at 6 weeks. After 6 weeks, you can't get an abortion. I don't really see what the problem is with that. You have 6 weeks to determine whether or not you want to keep the fetus. And after that, it's determined a living human being, and you can't kill it. What's the problem? Well, let's just say if you're at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and you have a rather attractive medic that just came in, PCS from Schofield Barracks, gets a little hot and heavy with with one of the line platoons there. It happens. She gets pregnant. The state of Oklahoma will not allow Fort Sill to perform an abortion because they are in Fort Sill. Now, what the federal government will do for that service member right now is they will pay that medic to travel to a state, California, Washington, whichever one's closest, or least expensive. This is the military after all. And they would pay for that soldier member to fly out to that state to have an abortion on taxpayer dollars. Now, I don't know about you. The states have made their issues clear as day on this. You know where you can do this at. You know where you can't. Follow the fucking law, guy. Follow the law by the state that you're in. That's all there really is to it. And allowing, and the whole pregnancy thing in the military, that's a whole other hot button issue. That's an actual issue that the military has. Especially, we're going to start seeing it crop up right now, especially since Biden's reactivated some IRR guys, but we'll get into that later in the video. But, yeah. How is that a hot button issue? That's an issue that is essentially the cultural fabric of America right now. It's on the fucking pulse. And a lot of states have made it clear you're not going to be killing these kids in the womb. All right. Doesn't matter if it's 6 weeks or fucking 8 months. All right. You're not doing it, and we're not going to allow people to pay for you to do it. And that's part of why it's along the party lines that it is The Democrats don't want to concede anything. The Republicans are perfectly fine, at least some of them, giving the fucking military aid to Ukraine, as well as getting what they want. This is negotiations 101, guys. Sometimes you have to give a little to get a little, all right? And Paulie Boy here is just trying to act like it's a non-issue. Well, I'm sorry. I think when it comes to killing kids in the womb, it is a pretty big fucking issue. Is it an issue that the military should be handling? Absolutely fucking not. But when you make it an issue that the military is handling, that's where I take issue with. Because this was not an issue before you decided to start letting fucking people, boing whoever the fuck they wanted, go to different fucking states to get these surgeries. All right? And that's just the first one. Because there's another one in here that's a hot button issue that, it still directly affects the military, Paul.
Currently they do. They didn't want to pay for the travel. You also have specific training about hiring and firing along racial lines.
Yeah, that was never in there. You're going on the affirmative action case that happened there earlier, because that's a hot button issue and that's on everyone's mind. Hey, Paul, I'll just come in here with this. What's wrong with letting the best candidate for the job get the job? I mean, we've got an affirmative action hire on the bench, and she voted against it.
Again, it's being framed by both sides as these fundamental questions of military readiness, but the truth is, when you get down into it, they're relatively small potatoes compared to, again, $1 trillion. That's more than most countries' GDP.
Yeah, more than most countries' GDPs. Now, I wouldn't exactly call making someone from Mississippi pay for someone in New York's state for an abortion a small button issue. I wouldn't exactly call that small. That is a big issue. A lot of people have very strong feelings about this, as well as they should. All right, on both sides. But you're just sitting here trying to pretend that this is just a non sequitur fucking argument, and that this is a non-issue, when in reality, yeah, it actually is. Because guess what, Paul? I know you didn't have a social life in the military, but a lot of fucking other soldiers do.
Countries by GDP, right? So if the national defense, here we go, perfect, nominal GDP. So when we look at, right, so 888 billion. We are looking at, puts us around, I think, the
Paul, I understand what you're trying to do here. Oh, we're throwing more money than most countries' GDP. Yeah, we have that luxury. But what does this do? How does this help your argument? What is this doing to fucking convince me that we shouldn't be voting on these issues in Congress and that they need to stay, or that we shouldn't be voting on these issues in Congress and they should have never been there to begin with? I mean, I'll just straight up say I don't think it's fair that a taxpayer in Mississippi should be paying for someone in New York's abortion, because that's essentially what happens with that. And the reason I use Mississippi as an example is because I know in the Bible Belt there's a lot of strong feelings against abortion there. And they're perfectly valid fucking feelings to have. 110%. Same with this, it's a perfectly valid fucking response to have. Like, hey, it's your body, your choice. 110%. I only wish they had extended that courtesy to the coronavirus vaccine, but hey, hypocrites are going to be hypocrites. That's an issue for another fucking day. But how is this convincing anyone that this is an issue, Paul? That it's an issue even being in the bill?
GDP of like Switzerland, right? So we're talking about entire nations worth
the Bank of Europe,
spending, and it's being held up over
compare us to them
for gas when service members have to or their families have to travel.
It ain't gas, buddy. It's airfare. It's hotels. It's paying for the surgery itself. The shit stacks up. All right. Now, you're not necessarily paying for their food and other amenities and shit, but it's not gas. I mean, in some states it might actually be gas, yes, because they'll just tell them to travel. if they're close enough. But again, if you're in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, or Fort Hood, Texas, or Fort Bliss, Texas, or even Fort Polk, Louisiana, if you're in any of those areas, right? How long do you think it's going to take to travel to, I don't know, Illinois, New York, California, the places that allow it? You're not just jumping in the car and going to these fucking places. All right, you're jumping on an airplane. You're going to a major destination hub. It's how they fucking do it. All right, you're not just get in the car there, folks. It's time to take the family, go get an abortion in Illinois. No, that's not how they do it, dude. All right.
To get abortions, or who's going to pay for hormone treatment to the
there it is.
Small number of soldiers who need gender affirming care.
It's not a small number. It's actually increased quite exponentially ever since the Biden administration has reinstituted that policy to allow the transgenders into the military. We currently have a number of transgender officers in the military in charge of fucking units that are completely running them into the ground, that these commanders are hardly ever fucking there because of the appointments they have to have. These commanders hardly ever do their jobs because of their emotional status, and these commanders are just flat out fucking incompetent. They don't do the fucking job. And they're basically just there as diversity hires. Let's go on. Let's go on, Paul. What else you got? You gender reaffirming care.
Again, this is not me having a stance. I don't want to take a stance on these hot button issues. They're
of course
distractions
you don't. They're not
again priority, which you.
I'm sorry, Paul. The real distraction is if you're out there, you're humping your 40 pounds of fucking gear. You're a fucking 240 gunner, so that means you got your AG is supposed to have all the ammo. And let's say that AG is a transgender and they can't fucking hump the ammo because they got to take their fucking gender reaffirming magic pill. All right. Or let's just say the AG, they didn't take the gender reaffirming magic pill and they have an out of body experience, and guess what? Now you're down fucking 600 rounds because he wanted to go and leave it at a fucking tree because the tree looked pretty. Or some dumb shit like that. Or let's just say you got to stop the whole fucking patrol, right? Do a fucking 9-line, get a helicopter in there because this guy's having some kind of fucking reaction to his gender affirmation magic pill that the doctors didn't foresee happening, and now he's convulsing in the middle of the fucking forest. That's not a distraction. That's losing fucking lives at that point, Paul. All right? And your inability to take a stance on this not only shows your lack of fucking leadership capability, but just your lack of fucking enthusiasm being a leader in general. All right. You like to tout off your whole fucking thing of being a fucking patrol leader and a platoon leader, being a second lieutenant, this, that, and everything else as some kind of high grandeur kind of thing. And it should be. But you have no leadership qualities at all, dude. Like, you're sitting here, I don't want to take a stance. Guess what? Sometimes a leader has to take a fucking stance, and sometimes that stance is unpopular. All right? Being a leader isn't doing what the rest of the fucking crowd wants you to do. Being a leader means taking a hard fucking right sometimes. And if you had any fucking love for this fucking country left at all, if you had any love for the fucking military left at all, you would be 100% against this. About the abortion thing, about the gender reaffirmation thing, you would be 100% against it. But you don't. You just probably saw it as a fucking job. Probably didn't give a fuck about any of your fucking soldiers that were under you in Afghanistan. Hell, would fucking bet you probably, you know what? No, I ain't even gonna say that one. Because that one's hitting a little too close to home. But let me just put it this way, Paul. I know you know better.
Be asking yourself, Congress's job is to defend the nation from threats in the case of the National Defense Authorization Act, right?
In the case of the National Defense Authorization Act, no. Congress's job is to control the purse strings and to ensure that laws go through a legislative process. That is Congress's job.
Big questions are the stuff that should hold up this sort of effort. These aren't big questions. They're political grandstanding.
So why is the other side making it a big question then? Why is the other side so adamant that they have to have these things in place? Why? Like, you want to say it's political grandstanding. Why is it that they fought tooth and nail 110% just to get into the positions of power that they are so that they can put these policies in place? Why? Oh, but it's not political grandstanding. Or it's political grandstanding. No, this ain't political grandstanding. This is actually pretty fucking vital to the security of the nation and our readiness as an army.
So, but I don't think it was actually in danger of not passing.
Of course not. There's money for Ukraine in there. You really gonna be the guy to hold up the money for Ukraine? Nah, of course it's gonna fucking pass. That's part of why these things end up getting us so stuffed with pork as they do, dude.
Other thing that's pretty interesting, right? In speaking of nonsense, right?
Yeah, we're gonna stop it there because the rest of this video, as you can see, the next 5 minutes, it's not even talking about the bill. It's talking about something in Russia. I don't know exactly what. He's once again confused about Wagner and, you know, him calling him a PMC and then him not. Now, I think I know what's going on because the Russian military actually has a army unit called Wagner, right? This is not the same as Chukna Wagner, which is the PMC that is currently in Belarus and Africa and everywhere else. Now, whatever weird game the Russians are playing with this name nonsense here could very well be working, could very well not be, but he ends up very, very flabbergasted in this video because he just doesn't understand what's going on. He's confused. He keeps seeing them referred to as not a PMC when they are a PMC, and that's only because, once again, he hasn't done his research, doesn't know that there is an army unit in the Russian army called the Wagner unit, as well as a PMC called Chukna Wagner in Russia. So, but yeah, that's a lot of what this bill is. It's a lot of pork. They're not no side's immune to the pork stuffing in bills. Again, I still think his lack of a stance on it once again shows his lack of leadership and shows why he should have never been in a leadership position to begin with. I don't know about you, but I continue to keep hearing stories about some of these people in very, we're not talking, you know, low end positions of power. These guys are coming in as privates and shit. No, these guys, because all you need in the army for the army to consider you qualified to lead troops into combat is a bachelor's degree. And a lot of these transgenders are getting into high-end officer-type positions because they, A, identify as female, so they have to go off of the female APFT standards, which they're bringing back after the combat PT test shit. Don't know why. But that's a lot of that. It's never female to male. It's always male to female. Okay? I've never seen it the other way. And because of that, they're being put in leadership positions because they have a bachelor's. These are second lieutenants that end up making rank. Up to captain is pretty much automatic so long as you keep your nose cleaned. And these are people with decision-making power that can very well fuck some people up. I mean, these are not people in control of their emotions. They're fucking biometric scanners all off the fucking charts because of the amount of fucking hormones they continue to pump into themselves, as well as their body continuing to pump it in up until they get an external source of it. And then when that external source stops, the body freaks out and then it goes all up in crazy cahoots and shit. All right, this is how it fucking works. All right, if your body's getting an outside source of testosterone and your body naturally makes testosterone, guess what? Your body's going to stop making testosterone because it's going to be able to identify that it's intaking the chemical from an outside source. And so in order to work more efficiently, it's going to stop making testosterone. All right. Now, if you just stop cold turkey on that shit, it has all kinds of fucking weird effects on the human body, down from pubic hair growth to mental conditions. All right, it's a wide variety of bullshit that can happen with this, and the fact that he continues to not take a fucking stance on it is concerning. Well, not really concerning anymore, being that he's not in, but a lot of people see him as an authority point on these issues, and that's the big issue with it as well. Is some of these people are going to see this and be like, "Oh, he doesn't take a stance, must mean it's okay," and in reality, it's not. It simply isn't. The stories I've heard from some of these fucking people that are under these transgender commanders, it's fucking horrifying. Straight up fucking horrifying. We're talking paperwork being thrown around at guys, ruining their fucking careers just for simply saying yes, sir, when it was yes, ma'am. All right. Ruining guys' fucking careers. And this is part of why we're having the recruitment process that we are. Or the recruitment crisis that we are. It's because of stuff like this. Like, I'm sorry, you're not going to get young men and women into fucking uniform if you're going to have some fucking weird clown-looking motherfucker in the fucking BC's chair giving you a field-grade Article 15 because you decided to salute him and say, "How you doing? Good morning, sir," instead of "How you doing? Good morning, ma'am." And it, whatever the fuck it is, took it as a fucking offensive action on him, on whatever it is, and decided to give you 60-60-30 because you're being a bigoted fucking whatever the fuck. You know, name your fucking insult for the fucking day. You know, this is shit that's actually fucking happening. And when you, like, just for saying yes, sir, when it wanted to be called yes, ma'am, like, you literally have the "it is ma'am" from GameStop in New Mexico in charge of fucking units. And that's what's going on. And people are fucking wondering, why don't people want to join the fucking military anymore? Well, that's part of it. That's fucking part of it, right fucking there. You know. And it's gotten to such a fucking point. Biden, yeah, I noticed he hasn't said anything about this. Biden the other day actually had to activate a bunch of IRR guys. If you don't know what IRR is, the Individual Ready Reserve, where basically if you're still on your first contract, if you do 5 active, then your next 3 years are going to be inactive. You're going to be put on what's known as IRR status. And that's basically, if any conflict comes up, the government can go, "Hey, you were in the military, we need you back," and they just grab you and throw you in. And they're starting to fucking do that with fucking guys right now for Operation Atlantic Resolve in Europe right now, which should be very fucking concerning, because the last time they started doing stuff like this was Iraq. We were about to invade Iraq when they started pulling the IRR guys, and then came stop loss. Can't wait for you to fucking explain what stop loss is, Paul. Yeah. Anyway. But yeah, that's the big issue with this stuff here right now. And Pauly Boy once again continues to miss the mark. Starts going, "Oh, but my Russia" in the video here at the tail end. It is what it is. So I'm gonna leave it there. I got stuff to do. I know you got stuff to do. Gotta wait on Pauly Boy to make a fool of himself again. And we'll come back with another video just sitting here laughing at him because he's a fool and he doesn't know it. Pauly Boy. Dude, you need to stop, man. You really need to stop.